Morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Today is May 27th, Thursday of 2021, and it's approximately 9:31, and we are starting the ILL Technical Group meeting. Can I have an approval of the minutes from our last meeting on February?
I gotta look at it.
Anyone want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Carrie
I'll
Carroll
second
from
that.
Fox River. Oh, it's a fight. I defer.
Okay, we have a second. Those minutes are approved. Today, this morning, we have myself, Jeanne Kennedy, the chairperson of the ILL Tech Group. And we have a report from Mako. She's going to report to us on the new patron statistical class codes.
Yeah, so, oh, sorry, Jeannie. Were you?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so just very quick update for anyone who's been working in patron records. You may have seen 2 new statistical codes or have seen the update in CCS eNews. So there were 2 new codes that were added in April. This was non-resident fee waived cards for kids and non-resident fee waived veteran. So both of these were created to help libraries denote and run stats on patron records impacted by updates to the Illinois administrative rules on non-resident fee cards. So these 2 stat codes are to be used with patrons who are now eligible for waived non-resident cards. So just take note of them when you're working in patron records. You'll now see them on the list. And then just kind of like the final little note on that update, stat codes are purely used for reporting, so they will not impact circulation eligibility or limits in any way. So that was just a very brief update in cards for kids. Before I pass this over to Deb for her update, there was one other thing I wanted to just quickly show you. I did have a request related to the CCS directory. So I just kind of want to show everyone how you can access an up-to-date directory and submit changes to staff contacts, because I know there's been a lot of staff change lately. So if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen just for a moment so I can show you the CCS website. Hopefully you can see that here. And then on the CCS website, under contact, there is an area for CCS directory. And this is where you can click update directory and submit any changes to staffing. So if you need to change a circulation contact or an interlibrary loan contact, you can do it there. And then you can download the directory. So Beth will update the directory whenever we get an update request, and then post the updated version to this download directory area. So just click there, you can download it and save it to your desktop. So that is just what I very quickly wanted to show you. And let me kind of get back here. There we go. Okay. So with that, thank you, Jackie. Before we also forget, if everyone can just take a minute during the updates and pop your name and library code into the chat box, and we'll use that for attendance. And with that, I am done with my part of the update.
Great. Now we're on to new business. And one of the first things that came up was, how does your library handle lost or lost and paid IOL items? We'll open this up to the floor.
Yeah, and as people are kind of thinking about this, I just kind of wanted to add that this was my submission, and I just kind of want to touch base with the group. We don't really have like a recommended or standardized workflows for dealing with lost and paid interlibrary loans. So I was very interested in seeing what your practices are in order for us to maybe develop a recommended practice. So kind of, in this line of thought, if a patron loses an interlibrary loan item, but has not yet paid for the item, and you want to delete the ILL record, what's your workflow? Just kind of curious what you guys do with those records.
Are you
One of the
talking
first
about
thing-
CCS ILLs or non-CCS ILLs?
Out of system ILLs.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Louise, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I send out an invoice to the libraries with items that are over 90 days overdue. And the surprising thing is that 98% of the items come back as soon as the invoice goes out.
At Lake Forest, we follow that same policy. We don't wait for the 90 days. We have a standard letter that I type up. I have like a template, fill it in with all the information, what the cost of the item would be by contacting the other lending institutions so they have an idea of what it would be, send it out. And again, just like you're saying, Louise, those items come right back.
Diego, are you, oh, sorry.
Me? I said we follow the same procedure. Similarly, only we're a little bit more lenient. We don't, write it 90 days. It all depends on the workflow and what they have going at any given time, but we will send the invoice if they request it. Otherwise, we do send them like a friendly little email to the contact person saying, hey, what's happening? Usually they're very good about communicating back to us. A lot of times, some of those libraries will even reach out to us and say, we're having trouble getting this item back from our patron. Could you send us an invoice and things like that? So when we have a problematic library, which is usually the correctional institutions, we'll stop lending to them for a little while to see if we can get our materials back. If we can't, then we really don't like to lend to them.
So when in those rare instances where you don't get that item back, what do you do with that interlibrary loan request record? Do you let it sit there indefinitely, or at some point do you do the process to delete it?
Yes. Bill Blaine in just a moment.
I actually delete it, but we end up putting a note in their account, and then I have a paper file that I keep that record in my paper file.
Or else. When you bank with Wintrust, you can get one account that provides.
I'm gonna have to check with Alicia because she handles all that, her and Jeanne, and I don't know if we have anything formalized for the deletion of a record
That's those five.
of our items, but that's a good idea.
I would just delete it. I mean,
Yeah.
I would delete the record. I give it a dummy barcode anyways.
Mhm.
That's what I would do. I would delete the whole thing like I do when I check something in.
We tend to not delete it until it's resolved. Either we wait, sometimes we just waive it, especially this past year. We call it kind of our pandemic special. If it was something that was lent out before the pandemic and it's likely lost somewhere and the library is not going to be able to get it back, we have been waiving some of those. But we usually leave the record until the whole thing is taken care of. Either they paid or we waived it and deleted it from the OCLC records. And then we do it all at once. The CCS record and the OCLC record.
Okay, that's good to know. Sounds like Algonquin leaves the record until everything is resolved as well.
Anything else? Okay, well, let's move on to the next new item, IOL Tech Group updates for 21-22. Makeup?
Yeah, so our CCS fiscal year is ending at the end of June, and we will start a new fiscal year and round of technical group meetings in July. So I just wanted to give some quick updates, and there was one thing I did want to check in with the group
This
on.
is making me mad.
I'm just going to mute everyone if that's okay, and you can definitely unmute yourself if you wanted to pitch in and talk. So I wanted to give a couple quick updates and then get approval from the group for just one adjustment for this coming year. So first, just the updates part. We're again going to try out the abbreviated schedule for the ILL Tech Group. So this would mean meetings in August, February, and an optional meeting in May. So it would just be that November meeting that's typically around Thanksgiving that we will just kind of skip. Our meetings will be virtual through the end of 2021. So our August meeting will definitely be via Zoom. At that time, we will reassess virtual versus in-person meetings. So you can expect more updates about that near the end of the calendar year. We are finalizing the meeting schedule for the 21-22 fiscal year. Watch for those dates to be released. Obviously within the next month, you'll have them before the new fiscal year starts. I anticipate the August meeting will be held on August 26th, 2021. So we'll stick with kind of our same pattern of Thursday mornings. The next part is officers. So the February meeting was the first ILL Tech Group meeting of the year, since last year was very, very weird, to put it mildly. At that meeting, we still had vacant officers. And so if you remember, we elected Stephanie Klemp from Highland Park as our vice chair / chair-elect, and Mary Ellen from Niles as the secretary. We technically voted them in to fill officer positions for this current fiscal year. And if we follow the typical fiscal year schedule, at the end of next month, these positions will already move on, which means it's time to elect new secretary and a new vice chair elect. So we elected people to fill our vacant positions and then right away shuffling them off. So one thing I wanted to check in with the group on and propose is seeing if the group would be okay with the current officers maintaining their positions for another fiscal year. So this would mean Jeannie would remain as chair for 21-22, Stephanie would remain as vice chair, chair-elect, and Mary Ellen would remain as secretary. So just want to see if there were any objections to that. I'm seeing a few heads shake, so hopefully.
Do these people want to resume, continue?
I did check in with everyone,
Okay.
and yeah, so that's a very kind consideration, Louise.
Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds like there's no objections. So I think we'll kind of hold to that plan. The officers will remain in their positions for the next fiscal year.
Will that need to be voted on? I thought we couldn't vote on something unless it's announced that there's a vote coming up.
Yeah, no, that's a really good consideration. Well, if you'd like, then we can table this, vote on it at the beginning of August ILL meeting. Does that sound good, Jeannie?
I think that's what we would have to do.
Okay, great.
Logistically, I'm all for it. But I think if we don't announce there's a vote, we can't actually make a change.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
I want to say thank you to all the current officers who are going to continue.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll make a note at the beginning of August ILL meeting. We will do a formal motion and vote. Okay, great. So those were the just some quick updates on what the tech group is going to look like over the next fiscal year. Like I said, will be virtual through the end of 2021, and we will have the list of meeting dates available for everyone in the coming weeks.
Excellent. Now we have a discussion coming up, revamping IOL requests, and that came from Lori at McHenry. And we had some nice outlines that were sent in on how things proceeded at their libraries. Would anyone like to contribute?
Yeah, I was curious to hear about this as well. Oh, I wanted to see if practices have changed, especially with all the COVID changes.
At Lake Forest, what has happened is we get a lot of chat requests that we weren't getting before. And so instead of those phone calls coming in through the circulation desk and being transferred, a lot of those requests are going directly to our reference staff who run around and do a quick fill so that it can go out to the front for curbside pickup. So that's really convenient. And we're going to change at Lake Forest to having open hours from 9 to 9 starting in June. And we're going to continue with the curbside because it has become so popular. Our patrons really like the safety of it and they like the convenience.
Oh, Jackie, you're muted.
Lori, have you, when you read through what everybody typed to you or to the group, have you made any changes or any procedures?
Yeah, we did start putting in the requests right away, and switching it to exporting it, making it active. I think that is going to work pretty well. It was just more of a making sure that all of our public services and circulation knew to look in both hold spots.
Right.
So we've done that. I've started using spreadsheets that I've created to keep track of what things are out and when they're coming back. And I'm weird, so I have lots of weird colors, and this, if it's pink, it's back. If it's blue, they have it out. And then I made another spreadsheet to take off from the main spreadsheet all the ones that have been returned. So I keep those in a separate spreadsheet. I'm going to try, I think, on June 1st, not keeping a paper copy here, just having the paper copy that we send off to the library. So we'll see how that works. I'm just scared I'm going to miss something or forget I have something out that, but we'll see.
The one thing that,
Oh, go ahead, Jeannie.
the one thing we do at Lake Forest is I have plain red tape and I take off a strip maybe about 2-3 inches long, and I write OCLC on there, and then I write the OCLC number that this item has been assigned, and I put that on the front cover so that when that item goes out or comes back and goes into quarantine, it can be easily identified as being something other than just a CCS item.
We use colored tape too for the ones that I send out. I put a little blue tag on them, blue tape on it, and then for the ones that come in from outside libraries for our patrons, they have a green tape on them. So our circulation knows those come back to me, so I can deal with the paperwork and stuff.
I kind of wanted to ask the group as I was reading through the emails that were coming through from Lori's request, why some folks do elect to keep additional spreadsheets on these versus like we just use World Share's menu system with what's in, what's out. And I just wanted to know what the benefit was for folks who do use the additional spreadsheets.
We, do a spreadsheet on the incoming items from outside the system for our patrons. And I have been questioning that for some time. I don't think that it's been a long time since I've had to refer back to it. So I am questioning that for our new fiscal year, if I really need to do that. I'm not sure yet. It's hard to let go. So, but I really, other than like, I'll use it to keep a count every month, but I can do that from OCLC information too. So I'll let you know what I decide.
One of the things that we found we do is we keep items that come from outside of the system, because they usually have a different due date. We keep those behind the circulation desk. And what we found is the practice we've adopted is that we call the patron to tell them the item is behind the circulation desk, because many of them were going to where the hold shelf was and finding no hold there. So, and they can't be checked out on the self-checkouts. So because they each have their own individual dates. And that's actually eliminated people going to the hold shelf and wondering where their hold is, because being sent an email that there's a hold available doesn't tell them it's inside or outside the system. So that's one of the things and it's not a big deal. Actually, the people welcome a personal phone call. We've had people say, oh, thank you. It's so good to hear from somebody, so it's been good. PR also.
Thank you.
I had a couple of things regarding what people were saying. We don't keep a spreadsheet, but for the items that we have requested for our patrons, we print out that OCLC, that World Share request page. And we pretty much keep all of the info, and we kind of fold it in half and we file it. We put any information that we have about that item right on that sheet. Like when we put the ILL request ID number on it, we put the date that we requested, we put the date that we've received it, we put the due date, we put the barcode of the item right on that sheet. Then we file it with received items. When it comes back to be returned, we take it out, we close the record on the item, and then we mark it returned. And we save that for about 6 months in case anyone has a question and we need to refer back to it. And then we discard them. As far as items that we're sending out, those we just go with the menu that's on World Share. We don't keep a separate spreadsheet for that. And I've been listening to, and I'm wondering maybe sometimes that might be helpful, but we've just kind of gotten in the habit of trying to do less paperwork. So we follow that menu for that. And then also what Luis was saying about the picking up of the holds, what we do is we put them out with the regular pickups, because it does generate a notice for the patron when we receive it. But we put like a special label, a big orange label that says, take to the desk to check out this ILL item, check out at the desk. So the patron knows not to go to the self-check with that. It won't check out at the self-check. Come to the desk because we have to change the due date on it. But we just put them out with our regular holds. So hopefully that helps as far as ideas for Lori. There's so many aspects to it that it's kind of good to maybe ask you if there's any specific things that you want to know about, just because there's so much to it. So that's my part.
Well, when Bonnie was here, she absolutely everything paper all the way. She needed her paper trail. And so I'm just trying to see if I can reduce some of that, because it just seems like we discard so much paper, shredded out. It doesn't need to be printed. Like when I look at the requests from outside libraries to us, if we don't have the item, or if they're asking for a video game, which we won't send them, but they're somehow things are listed weird. Sometimes they're listed as computer files. Sometimes they're listed as articles, even though it's a computer game, a video game, like a Nintendo game. I just say no to those, and I don't even print the thing. So I don't have any kind of record for that, because it doesn't make sense to print the paper, find out they're not going to get to have it, and then shred the paper. So, but we do keep our ILLs behind our circ desk as well. We were calling people, but then we were finding that people were like, well, I just got the automated call. Why are you calling me again? So we kind of decided that let's not keep doing that for a while. And so far, nobody's, people have been pretty good at at finding it. Like, they'll come up and say, hey, I have a hold, I can't find it. And then we'll look on their card and say, oh, because it's this. And then the staff will get it from the special shelf we have it on. So. Yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm just trying to streamline things a little more and make it move a little quicker, and maybe not print as much paper.
I want to say that when I started in here, we had the same thing. There was so much paper, a paper for a paper for a paper for tally marks, for this, for that, for the other. I slowly but surely phased all paperwork out. Spreadsheets, we had 5. I don't know why, I don't know what, but we worked out, we slowly phased all that out. It was a previous person in there and got phased out. We don't use any really paper thing, except there's the exception. If we mail it out, we do put a tracking label on the item and to make sure it was delivered and they received it, because we had a couple of issues where people say, well, we never got it, or whatever. That's the only thing that we have currently saved is our tracking label, and then once we know it's delivered, so but anyway, just I only use this Polaris and OCLC, and that's all we use to get our statistics and things like that, and no paper for us. You couldn't tell by looking at my office that I dislike paper, but trust me, I do.
Well, Maggie, that makes me feel better, because reading all of those, it's like we don't use paper either. All of ours is completely paperless. And granted, we probably don't get some of the volume of IOL requests that a lot of other libraries do, but it does work for us.
Yes,
really well.
We're in agreement.
Anyone else?
I just want to throw out something that we came across. We've been doing, they come in waves, a lot of article requests, and something came up that recently I had to refer back to the 5 of 5. It's just to let people know you cannot order more than 5 copies of a single issue that have been published within 5 years. Otherwise, you get into legal issues, because we had a patron who really wanted 10 articles from a specific journal, and I had to explain to him. He even had a friend of his call up to give me 5 more from that, but the library itself cannot send out more than 5. Just as a reminder, if anyone, there were some people that didn't, in our library, that didn't know about that rule. So it's the 5 of 5. So just threw that up.
Is that a ILL in the ILL code or rule?
Yeah, I have it. It's you know what? I'm not even in the library right now, but it is in the national code. I'll send it out when I get to the library. It doesn't affect too much, except that you might get one patron, like we did, that wanted 10 articles from the same journal. And they were all published within the last 4 years.
I'll be back tomorrow with you 6 to 10. Maggie Klingenberg is next with a featured new release, a new Paganini recording. In just a moment, here on Classical WFMT in Chicago at 98.7 FM.
Anyone else?
I am curious for Maggie and Carrie, if you're totally paperless, so you're keeping track in a spreadsheet then, or just through OCLC?
At least for us, it's just through OCLC.
Just through OCLC too. We do not keep any spreadsheets anymore.
You don't send a paper with your item when you're sending out to libraries, and you do?
I guess that is a good point. We do send the actual OCLC number request that we print out for the print queue. So that one we absolutely do, but in terms of like in transit, sent out, all of that stays through OCLC.
Yeah, we also print out the OCLC paperwork and send it with the item and put the green tape on it and the red tape and the code and things like that. So yes, we do that, but we don't keep it afterwards. When we're done, it's all returned and everything. We don't keep that. And then we also don't, we clean the OCLC out, returned, and CCS, they're trying, with Polaris, they clean that up too. So that's what I do. But as far as like creating an Excel spreadsheet, where we used to colors too, pink, green, this means that means this, with a little color code at the bottom of it. I couldn't make heads or tails out of it sometimes, but like I said, we don't do that anymore.
I'm just trying to grasp it because I do use paper. Sending items out, I put in the slip, and then for our patrons' requests, I print out the page from OCLC. I don't keep any kind of a spreadsheet, but I do print the paper just to keep track of the items. So I was just curious how you were doing that.
So when you say you're not using paper, you're talking about statistics, like spreadsheets for what you're sending out, what you're taking in, but you're still doing the request forms, correct? Because I know there had been some talk about going completely paperless, and I've wondered how that would work, because we've talked about it, but we can't quite figure out how you would go completely paperless. Again, we don't use paper for keeping track of statistics, what goes out, what comes in, renewals, none of that. We just do that through the World Share Record. But we can't really seem to not be able to not have to print out the actual form to keep track of items. So
that's what I was getting at too, Angie. Thank you.
Okay.
We print out the request from OCLC that goes in the book that we're sending, or that, as we receive it, some of them tape it on. The other libraries receive it and they have it taped on there. So those, yes, because otherwise we wouldn't know, how to find the request in OCLC, which is what they do. They scan it and that helps them find the record.
Yeah.
But that's the only thing we do. I mean, and that's coming from OCLC. But as far as like statistical tally marks, and I sent this and I received this and I got that, and no, all we do is print out from OCLC the record so we can send it with the item. And then when we get the items, usually their record is in there too, from all the items that we receive. So does that make sense what I'm saying? So when I say paperless, I don't mean like, we don't use those papers from OCLC. I just meant like, we don't create our own paper system, our own spreadsheet system, our own tally mark system, our own tracking of the items going out and in, apart from what's in OCLC.
Same for us, yes.
We were considering going truly paperless, and we made up procedures and everything. And as we put it into action, we just felt uncomfortable because there are maybe 4 or 5 people that work in this area. We rotate. So we decided to just get rid of the worksheet that we had, and we do print out the request ID for our patrons when things come in from other libraries onto a sheet with a little template at the bottom that we just use instead of a worksheet. So we just have the one request that we print, and we file that in a file by date. And we find that to be very useful. So we ditched the completely paperless idea.
For our local patrons who are making a request, the first sheet of paper that I get, the OCLC request, comes to me from our reference librarians, and down at the bottom they put their initials so I know who this patron is working with. That goes into my pending box. Then when it is filled, that same paper moves to the filled box, and on there I will write the date that I entered it into Polaris, the date that it was received, due date and return date, and the date that I deleted it out of the system. And then when the item is returned, that piece of paper goes into the all done box. So it's one sheet of paper, just kind of following it all the way through.
This our OCLC requests. They all go through the World Catalog. So the staff that's putting in the request, whether it's youth or adult or anybody, they do it right through the catalog, the World Catalog, and then we can access all those requests to review through the OCLC staff side. And that's how we track it. So there's no paper requests that we have that way.
Yeah, for the ones that don't get filled, I take that sheet of paper that has the initials on it and I give it back to the reference librarian so that they can follow through with their patron. Any other suggestions on things that you do?
Only one other small thing for us, since we're tracking everything through OCLC, is on a pretty regular basis, we don't create the Polaris request until that we see that it's in transit. And the only way we denote that in OCLC is just putting a plus sign next to the patron's name. And that's just the most easy visual cue to be like, it's already in their account. They're good to go. So we don't have to keep wondering, did I already do this? Oh, well, it's not actually in transit. It got canceled. That kind of thing.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I'd like to thank everyone for their contributions this morning. I'm sure you're all looking forward to the extended weekend. This morning is kind of a short meeting, but it's always nice to have an opportunity to have contact with each other. As we stated earlier, Mako said our next meeting is going to be October 26th. At that time, it will be August.
Sorry to Jeannie.
Yes, August 26th. I'm thinking really far ahead. August 26th. And that'll be a Zoom meeting. And at that time, we will be voting on whether to continue with the same chair people as we have right now. So if there is no other items, further business to come.
What? I'm
Yes.
sorry to interject again. I just
Yeah,
was
go ahead.
interested if you were wondering if you were still interested in hearing about the subject heading update.
Oh, yes, we didn't cover that. Do you want to do that one? The subject heading?
Do that one.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
we were asked to give just a quick update on some recent changes that we've made to subject headings that have been part of our overall strategic initiatives of to support DEI initiatives. So one change that we recently made was removing the Library of Congress heading of illegal aliens and a handful of related headings, and then replacing them with undocumented immigrants and non-citizens. So just some background, the push to replace that LC heading began many years ago, all the way back in 2014. Those headings were identified as being demeaning and pejorative. So the push began to have LC change or replace those headings with different terminology. So LC was set to change those headings back in 2016. And for the first time ever, the House of Representatives blocked that change from happening. So in the event that LC is not changing those headings, many libraries and consortia have opted to locally change those headings, again, absent from any type of big decision by LC. So CCS started our investigation into this all the way back in 2019, hit a pause in 2020 due to the pandemic, but in March of this year, 2021, executive committee asked CCS and gave us the go ahead to actually replace these headings locally. So we have made that decision on which terms to use to replace the headings, and we'll be making those changes the week of June 7th. So one additional subject heading change that we have just made as well is allowing a new thesaurus to supplement or complement our existing Library of Congress headings, and that is the addition of the Homosaurus, which is a thesaurus of LGBTQ+ subject headings. Gender identity and sexual orientation terminology have evolved significantly over the past decade, and the existing headings may no longer reflect terminology that patrons would use to self-identify. So we have allowed this new thesaurus and these new headings to be used in our database to help patrons search in the catalog using the terms that they actually use in their day-to-day lives. So we're really, really excited about these changes, and we'll continue our look into making the catalog more inclusive and our records more accessible and searchable by our patrons. So we're really thrilled at CCS to make these changes and hope everybody is as well.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't miss that. Will you be sending out a list of some of those LGBTQ terms or no?
We did share the link to like the full website in the newsletter last week. So if you missed it, you can go ahead and look at that. We can go ahead and we'll send it out again. There's over 2,000 terms in there, so it's a big long list. But definitely that's something we'll be providing more training on for our catalogers as well. We're looking to get a speaker to come in July or August to lead some more CE on how to use and correctly apply some of the new subject headings in that thesaurus.
Thank you. So now, if there's no other business to come before the meeting, can I have someone motion to adjourn? We have a first by Maggie. Do we have a second? I can't see everyone.
I see a first from Maggie at Round Lake and a second from Paula at Zion. Is that right?
Yes.
Cool.
Okay, we have a second from Paula. Given that, let us adjourn and we will meet again on August 26th. Today is May 27th, Thursday, and we're adjourning at 10:13. Have a great week.
Great to see everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.